Hey everybody, welcome to the Commando cast. I am Mike.
And I'm Andrew, and today I'm here to ask Mike, has the Across the Galaxy meta peaked? All right, so over the last couple episodes, Mike and I have, I think, had a pretty positive outlook on where the Destiny community and where the meta is right now. But over the last couple weeks, we've seen things kind of more stagnate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really deny the results that have been coming in, especially this last weekend.
Yeah, sure. So with that, I know I personally am a little less positive than I was like 2 weeks ago, and I'm actually say I'm skewing towards the negative side, which, you know, when Mike and I started doing this, we very much chartered ourselves with always being positive and bringing positive energy. But that's a little more difficult for me today. So hopefully Mike will be talking more than I will, and we'll maintain our positivity.
Well, I think it's important to keep it real too. So
yeah, that's true. So what do you think is going on? I mean, let's start talking about local results. So what have we been seeing at our local tournaments?
Well, of all the things we're going to talk about today, I think the locals is probably my most favorite because our group has really gone out of their way to play kind of varied decks. Watching the gameplay videos at Gongai, I'm seeing a lot of crazy stuff. I think I saw Hondo. Who is the Hondo?
Hondo Jabba.
Yeah, Hondo Jabba, which was really neat. I'm just not seeing a lot of Mill. I'm not seeing a lot of Vader. Obviously, somebody's going to bring it, but it's not like it used to be. I feel like when we had other stale metas where everyone just brought the same 3 decks between 12 people. So I know on Monday Night Dice, we didn't have a single person bring Vader. And I don't think anybody brought Mill either, so it was really cool. I think our local meta, or at least our local competition, is at a good place.
Sure. I mean, I think that comes with the caveat, though, of we are still about 5 weeks out from the Portland Regional. I think we're still in the area where I think a lot of people are experimenting. I think a lot of people know where they want to go, but they're experimenting to either figure out learnings from that, how to beat it, or maybe that's something they can apply. So I don't know necessarily that it's that we've been bringing varied decks for the varied deckness part of it. I think we're actually kind of in like a strategic testing phase.
I think that's fair.
And you know, on the flip side, from the Gongai side, when I do the videos, I try very hard to force variety in what I show. Right. So you know, you're not going to get 4 games of Enzo playing Mill. Right. Would be the objective. So. And obviously, when they're at the top table, I always film the top table, and that is what it is. But so I don't know. I mean, I agree there. I know what we're seeing at Gongai is we don't have very many people playing Mill, which is great because we try to keep the atmosphere casual. We do have the one individual who keeps bringing it and keeps doing very well. He's a good player, and you know he's using a very good deck list. But yeah, so we'll see. And you know, we haven't seen a bunch of Vader, but I expect that to come back. I think generally a lot of people are kind of frustrated with the Vader thing right now, which I think is keeping them off of it. So
I'm curious to see what the city folk are doing at the Portland Game Store and some of the other places that have a pretty healthy meta. I don't get a chance because of travel restrictions sometimes to get out there. So I'd be curious in the comments if you guys are local and maybe give us a shout out what you think the local meta looks like in your community. I mean, that would be good.
Yeah, and I'm kind of kicking myself. Yeti was actually asking for a TO earlier last week. He was asking for a TO because he was, I believe, he was in San Diego for their regional, doing the TO thing down there, right? So I kind of kicking myself. I didn't go over there and record some games just to see that, but you know, again, it's on the other side of town at 6:30 on a Friday, right? So. All right, so let's go into the regional results. So you and I haven't recorded in 2 weeks, so let's hit up the last 2 weekends if you can. Give us a quick recap of the last 2 weekends.
Yeah, so starting with the week of the 12th, I believe it would be the 2 weeks ago, we had Vader Greedo won Italy, it won Alabama, it won Green Bay, Wisconsin, it won Connecticut, it won Manchester, UK. It won Melbourne, Australia. So it was highly representative at the top tables. And then we started to see, I believe we started to see some Mill, right? More Mill kind of settle in. Also, and I like that we had an Iden Mother deck. I know that's been one of my favorites of your brews that you've built. It was very small to 14 players, so that's always a hard to say whether it was, maybe it just got an easy well, not easy because all decks are pretty strong now, but it didn't probably face, again, 25 Vader players.
Sure. And then this last weekend, just as of the day we're shooting this, it was 2 days ago, was the San Diego Regional anyway, so this last weekend.
Correct. And that was the meta seemed to really settle into aggro-mill and Vader. Like, I mean, there was a couple other let's see, there was another Beckett Mother deck with looks like, is it Double Down? Is that? Yeah.
No,
is that
Beckett
right? Mother
you play with Profitable Connection.
Oh, okay. Well, this one did not, I don't think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. So anyway, it did settle into, again, two decks, and I think that's one of the reasons why we want to talk today, because you and I have talked a lot about before where I can be happy with the state of the variance of the decks being brought to these events, but be very unhappy with the results that are being shown from it. Sure. And I feel like this weekend is probably, those results really prove that to me at this point. Like, something needs to change, and what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if the statement of something needs to change does, right? I mean, I think if you look at every meta we've had, we being the community end up falling on one or two or maybe three, if we're lucky, strong decks, and I mean that's just kind of the way it is, right? But I mean, I think. So, are you answering the question? Yes. I mean, has the meta peaked? Like, is there anywhere to go from here?
Yeah. So, right? Just to cut right to the chase, to answer your question, I really, truly believe in my heart that this meta is not solved.
Okay.
I just think that if you are given 2 weeks to prepare for an event and you're a top level player, you are going to gravitate to the best deck possible. That's what we're seeing. I think if you look at the release date of Across the Galaxies with the regional season, we've basically had the entire regional season over top of the release of Across the Galaxy. Sure, about 2.5 weeks. So they're really, I mean, people have been kind of forced to, here's your short window, bring what's best, and then I think it's also been like a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like it does well, so the people gravitate toward it. They test for it more, but I don't think by any means that the meta is solved. I personally have built decks that are very good against Vader. The problem is they suffer against Mill.
Yeah, and are they good against the rest? I mean, Yoda Man, I think it was last week, did a very cool analysis of the meta post-Thrawn versus the meta, or for Snoke. The meta post-Thrawn Snoke versus the meta pre-Thrawn Snoke, right? And his data was very clear that the number of Thrawn Snokes before the Snoke nerf was way higher still than the percentage of Vader decks we're seeing now, right?
Absolutely.
So the data clearly shows, and I'm not one to argue with data, but the data very clearly shows that the meta is more varied, or the number, I should say, the number of decks coming to tournaments is more varied now. Right. But that's almost more of a problem to me because we're still seeing the same decks by and large in the top. So if you have a more, before it was, okay, well, we had 80% Thrawn Snoke and it was all Thrawn Snoke in the top.
Right.
Okay, right? And then you can have the people say, well, the only reason it's so good, or the only reason it's in the top is because that's what all the good players are bringing. Then you counter with, well, the reason the good players are bringing it is because it's really good. right? But when you have, let's say, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but when you have, let's say, 50% of the field coming, and then that 50% is continuing to win, isn't that more of an indicator that things are strong?
Yeah, I would say you're right. Like, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think that's I don't really have an argument against that. I still stand by that. I think there are ways to be good and combat the strongest decks. I've been playing card games a long time. So have you. I mean, we're roughly the same age. I mean, I've been playing since the mid '90s. Every single card game that I've ever played, from Star Wars Destiny to Dragon Ball Super to Magic to whatever, there's always a best deck in every game and every meta.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
I mean, I think I'm a little more alarmed the fact that we kind of got to it so fast. like it just feels like it kind of settled in really quickly, and that's where I'm thinking, and I don't mean this as an insult to anyone who plays the Vader Greedo, because if you told me I had to play a regional tomorrow, that's probably what I'm bringing. Like if with no testing, like bring it, you got, that's probably what I'm bringing. But I think it's a testament a little bit to it feels a little lazy. Like we're just gonna pop in the 26 best cards that exist because they're yellow and blue. Everybody knows red has not been in a good place in a long time. And then we're gonna tech in 4 cards for the mirror match or maybe the mill if mills are heavy. So, and again, no offense to anyone who's been playing it, because I know there's some excellent players, but I feel like there's a little bit of laziness going on.
No, I think you actually touched on exactly kind of where I feel about, and to be honest, both of the decks, right? And by both the decks, I mean Vader, Greedo, or really even Vader X. But right. I actually think the Jawa version actually takes a lot more skill to play. But,
I think so too.
The Vader Greedo and Yoda Leia Meryl, specifically the two I'm referring to, right? I personally feel that both of those decks don't even need to be really all that optimized to win. Now, the Yoda Leia Mill more so. And I want to be very clear with what I'm talking about, right? I'm not taking away from the top 10% of players that continue. I mean, you look at Zion from his results.
Right.
I mean, the guy continually wins regionals. Like, I'm in no way saying that he's lucking his way to regionals or that he's just autopiloting his deck. Like, that's not in any way what I'm saying, so please don't take it as that. But I do feel that with those two decks currently, anybody could pick up that deck, show up to a regional, and get to like the 90th percentile. Just because they got there.
Yeah, and the proof's in the video. Like, look at the amount of sloppy play that has been seen with those decks.
Yes.
And it just rolls itself out of trouble.
Right. And granted, the Yoda Leia less so. But I mean, I played a game this weekend against a mill deck, and I was playing my Beckett Mauler Tie Swarm deck, which should do really well against mill because there's just way too many dice, right? But when you hit a force jump and it rolls a special and it rolls a special and it rolls a special and it rolls a special, what do you do?
Right.
Like, so to that extent, I think that frickin' force jump card is just as bad as Vader just rolling threes.
Sure.
Right. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not in no way saying that it doesn't take skill to win a regional. That's not what I'm saying. If you're taking that, then
you're mishearing us.
You're jumping to conclusions to
right.
hopefully make someone look bad, right? But my point is, I think that those decks have a very, I think Alex said, very high ceiling, right?
Low floor, high ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just, and then I feel right now like those decks don't even need to be optimized in the deck building.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I could probably, and I'm not a mill player. Like I feel like right now, and I'm also not a real strong deck builder, but I feel like I could probably cram 21 stall cards into a red-blue deck and then mill you out in 3 turns. Like, I mean, or 3 rounds. Like, I don't feel like it's, and it could be that we have the largest card pool, and I think I know we kind of disagree a little bit on this as far as Mill's strength after rotation. I think when you take out Force Illusion and not Rebel Assault, the Commando Raid. I think when those cards come out, like that deck slows. I mean, and of course, some of our damage dealing decks slow down as well. But I do think that is going to get better. Like I
don't know. I mean, we'll see. Right. I mean, things always, and granted, we'll have 4 sets out, but things always become less efficient and they slow down a little. But aside from Force Illusion and Commando Raid, and honestly, I don't even know that you need Commando Raid in that deck because Motivate is a thing and still exists. And yes, it's only 1 versus 2. Sure. There's no card draw. I get it. But Motivate also, I mean, a lot of times you only need to drop 3 cards. So I don't know. I think that deck's going to be around for a long time. I'm really worried about it because it just seems to, it doesn't seem that hard to play at a, again, it doesn't seem that hard to play at a basic level.
Right.
Right.
I do feel like just for some strategy, like I've played, because if you've been on TTS the last 2 weeks, it's a mill fest.
So I just don't play.
Right. I think the strategy is you have to remove. I mean, you have to spend all your removal on the force jump die. I mean, it just has to be removed.
It's so stupid.
I know, but what else are you going to spend?
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad play.
Right.
Right.
No, I hear what you're saying. So
yeah.
I think I feel things will get better. Mm-hmm. The regional season seems to bring out the worst in us. As far as like what we get annoyed by, like this is a very fun game, but playing against a really strong mill deck, I'm sorry, it's not fun for 85% of the population. There's a very small portion of crazy people that enjoy stalling someone out and watching them sweat for 25 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I believe disclosing dog in the fight, right? I mean, when I won my store championship over the summer, it was mill because I believed mill was the strongest at the time, right? So I am not saying, right, I would be a hypocrite if I was saying that bringing mill to a high-level tournament is a bad thing to do.
No, not
right?
at all.
Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's real good.
But you have to understand that even when, like for me, even when I win with a mill deck, I don't feel good about it. Like, I didn't have a good time with it, right? So, and I think maybe that's part of the problem is like this game still kind of feels like shouldn't be a super competitive game to me, and it just feels bad all the way around. Like I don't know, like you said, there's some people who get their enjoyment from it. I really wish those people would go back to playing blue and magic and just counterspelling and making you sit there and smell them for 30 minutes, but whatever. So
just to piggyback on that, I think, and we've talked about this before, I think I want to reiterate, it's very important that you have, I think that we have two metas in our local community where you are testing hard with your competitive play group, but you are trying to foster people having a good time in your local meta. We're at a really weird crossroads right now for this game. We're about to hit rotation. The game feels like it's like on a razor's edge right now, whether it's gonna succeed in the next 3 years or whether we're gonna be riding the downhill wave. And if you bring that kind of deck to a casual tournament and a new player shows up and you ruin their time, you're just hurting yourself. You're like, I stand behind that. Like,
yeah, you're not wrong. And then the reverse side of that, right, is that it only takes one person to bring that to make everybody at the tournament have a bad time. Mm-hmm. And I'm even more worried. So what happened this last week at Gongai is because Enzo came in with that mill deck and just demolished everybody and made a lot of the other new guys feel so bad. The one guy, after he sat down, he's like, oh man, I'm totally bringing that deck next week. Right. I'm like, great. Right. Fantastic. Awesome. Right. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think we've kind of gotten a little off topic. I want to try to steer us back towards we kind of started with more of the competitive focus, right? So you don't think the meta's capped.
I don't.
So where do we go from here? Because then that's the question. Like, where do we go from here?
So we're not in a time machine this week, right? Like we're right on. I'm
going to get this. I mean, like I said 2 weeks ago, we're changing the schedule.
All right,
we're going to release this baby before the next weekend.
So I think one of the reasons why I'm kind of excited about this meta is I saw some people who were a little bit out of the game for a while, kind of storm back into regionals with some old favorites. So again, I'm talking about our boy Mike Rudin, who I think did fairly well at his regional, and he brought in the solo Sabine.
Well, and Monk did too.
Yeah, Monk top 80'd, I think, with his solo Sabine. And
top 4, I think.
Yeah. What an interesting and brave. Sorry,
it's actually a great call versus Vader.
Absolutely, yeah, right? Yes. Because we've always said Vader's very fast too. Like that's one of the things that makes the deck good. Is it's huge and beefy and fast. So no one's faster than Sabine. Like,
yeah,
I mean nobody.
Well, I mean, no. Oh, then solo Sabine. Well, any Sabine.
Right. So. That's great. It also counters.
So where we go from here is solo Sabine?
No.
I don't know if that's good either.
No, I think where we go though is I think people will and should go through your binders a little bit and look at some old cards and tech. And we've been saying it. I've been saying it for the last couple months that I think Boba's 7th is still it can be really strong right now. Boba's special is real good when your opponent rolls 4 and 4 on their dice. So, I mean, there's some stuff that I think that...
Actually, you'd rather have them just roll 1-4, right?
Yes, 1-4, right? Yes, correct. So, I mean, there is a lot of... I think there's a lot of interesting things that people can do that are fairly strong, and I like it. I like the... After I saw the Solo Sabine came out, I instantly went to my binder and I was like, I think would be really good right now is Rey and Sabine. I still think because you get all the blue survivability. Rey for some reason has 10 hit points and only costs 9. Like of all the underpowered stuff they gave us in Awakenings, Rey, her hit points is not one of them. So she gets all the action sheeting. Even if Sabine goes down quickly, she can still play all the ambush weapons. So I mean, don't take that to regional tomorrow. But I'm just saying, like, I think it bears, looking at some of the older stuff and
that's right at 30, right?
Yeah, that's right at 30 with the single die Rey. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I played a limited amount of Han Rey back in the day, and like she always just felt so bad. But I guess Sabine and Han are two very different beasts, right?
Correct. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting idea.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It inspired some creativity in me, and I know we have talked a lot about how you felt a little stifled as a deck builder early on in this meta because some of the. I don't know. I think maybe just you kind of figured it out because you're good at it, right? Whereas me not being quite so good at deck builder, I've been really kind of inspired because someone kind of gave me a helping hand with these cards. Like they're like, hey, sucky deck builder, here's some baby steps for you to take, and then I was able to kind of tune my way into deck building, and that's where I think for me, I've really enjoyed this. I haven't been near as frustrated with it as you have been. And I also haven't felt really oppressed so much by the Vader and the Mill because the decks I have been playing, I felt have been competitive against that. The Han Kira has been, I mean, it's good. It struggled a little bit against Mill, mostly because if you don't roll well against Mill, you just die, right? Because it doesn't have any side fixing. But like I felt very positive about that, about being inspired to deck build. And unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I try to optimize a deck, and then I realize that card's actually just better in Vader Greedo. And I know that's unfortunate, but that's
I mean, but I think that's kind of where I was going with my original statement about kind of the lack of optimization. Is it just kind of feels like a lot of these decks play themselves right now. And then yes, there are certain tricks or certain situations or thinking 3 moves ahead that the top level players can do, but I mean, I think we saw on the stream, I think it's a safe statement to say that we saw on the stream there was some suboptimal play going on. And I get it, it's the end of the day. Right. We literally both have been there. Like, it's the end of the day, you make a stupid mistake, you knew as soon as you did it, you make the mistake. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're a bad player, but there was some suboptimal play going on and things were still going okay. Yeah. Right? So... And then I feel really strongly, and maybe this is just me being skewed from our local meta, but I feel really strongly right now, like, net decking is a thing. And, I mean, it's always been a thing, but, like, it just seems like nobody's trying anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, you just go on the DB, and, like, we had people showing up, like those 2 individuals talking about earlier, right? They just show up, and they're like, yeah, I got this off the DB. And it's like, okay, that's great, but, like... And it's fine. I mean, it is what it is. Something wins a regional. Like, if you don't think people are going to like carbon copy Zion's deck from the weekend, like, you're crazy, right? So,
and as a tuner, as a deck tuner, like, that is one of my favorite. I don't try not to do that at the locals, but as a deck tuner, that's what I usually like. Is I try to find a successful concept and make it better. And I know some people, that's the way they get their enjoyment. Is they just want to come roll some dice, and the easiest way to do it is grab a deck off the DB and throw it down.
To be clear, right, this game is slightly unique, as in, it's not that hard to come up with a character, or it's not hard, but, like, there's not that many character pairings, right? So if somebody else shows up and they're running Yoda Leia, that doesn't, I'm not saying, oh, they're running Yoda Leia, they copied the idea, right? Because, like, I came up independently with several ideas that, like, for example, Amy and I had but we started running Ayla Kit, and then maybe 8 days later or so, Hyperloops released their, oh my god, this is the bee's knees, right? And if you were going to give credit like, I think it would go to him because he spoke loudest, right? But
right.
there were probably 40 other people across the country running Ayla kit.
Right, there's only so many characters that add up to almost 30.
Right. So, I'm not talking about the character pairings, but, when it's, the deck list is 29 out of 30 cards, and you don't really necessarily know why 4 or 5 of those cards are in that deck. It's just because you were told to. That's more what I'm referring to. And, even when you're, again, I keep coming back to this, but you're in the state now where, like, I think 4 to 5 of your cards in these decks now don't matter, which I think is really stupid considering that, or don't matter to 90% of the population, which I think is a really stupid thing considering that we are at the biggest point we've ever had. Every card should matter.
Right.
And I feel at the beginning of this meta that every card did matter, but now it does not.
The Snoke and Thrawn meta, like, every single card mattered in that meta, because if you had one suboptimal card or made one play mistake against Thrawn Snoke, you were done.
Yes. So I think we're aligned on that because like right now it just feels like we're kind of back in the Legacies meta where like you kind of had 26 cards and then you had 4 or 5 cards of fluff that you kind of needed to tune for your own personalization. And now I feel like if you just like copy the deck and you don't know what those 4 or 5 cards do, or you don't understand the purpose that they serve, just pitch it for a power action, right? So I don't know. It just, like I said, I'm frustrated.
Right. I understand.
I'm sure that's been very clear. So right. Okay, so you answered a bit. Where do we go from here? That's fair. So I think that's pretty much all we had for the discussion. So I think it's peaked. I don't know that it's going to go anywhere myself, but you don't, which is good and reassuring to me, right? I mean, if we can see something different,
I think you're going to see.
Do you think we're not going to see 50% Vader at the
and that was just what I wanted to say. I don't think the results are going to shift a whole lot. I think 65 to 70% of all the regionals between now. I mean, there's probably only six or 7 left anyway. But I mean,
weekends of them.
Yeah, like you're going to see. I think you're going to see a vast majority of these won by Mill and Vader Greedo.
Right.
Sorry, like, but
yeah, no, I agree, and
I most likely will not be running Vader Greedo at a regional. Because I want to prove I don't need that to do well. And we talk about this all the time. My condition of enjoyment is going to be different than other people's.
Right.
Some people want that mat so bad that's their condition of enjoyment, and they're going to do whatever they can do to get that. My condition is not that. Like I do not have to win to enjoy myself at Destiny. I spent months sucking at Destiny to prove that. So I want to take something that's interesting, I enjoy playing, and I also want to prove to myself that I can beat Vader, that I can beat Mill, and that. So for me, that's what that's going to entail. I mean, so I can't. People are going to be bringing it though because it is the strongest deck in the
No, I mean, and that's coming, and so then not really counter, but to add on to what you just said, right? If you, because I think we're almost in a worse situation than we were pre-Thrawn Snoke. Now, hear me out, right? In terms of if you in the Thrawn Snoke meta were to bring something that was directly set to blow Thrawn Snoke out of the water, like Kylo Wolf, right? Kylo Wolf was able to do as well as it was because A, nobody had seen it or even thought about it, but also because it was directly countered towards something that was largely played in the meta, and it didn't do horrible against other stuff. Now, I very firmly believe, like you already said earlier, I can take out Vader, but I die to Mill.
Right.
And then even if you can somehow come up with a deck that handles both of those really well, I can promise you Shadowcaster's going to rip you up or something, right? And that's what I'm saying, since the meta is almost a little more varied at the core, but the top is still the same, you still have to be able to fight into the top to get your win condition, which is defeating what you've targeted.
Correct.
So I think it makes it very hard to kind of get through the chaff. I don't know.
Isn't it interesting, though, that in previous metas, when we would consider it healthy is when there was a strong rock, paper, scissors mechanic out there, and I feel like we're in that right now. Like,
what's the rock? Well, what's the scissors?
Right. I mean, the reason people were bringing Mill is because it's good against it is very strong against Vader.
Strong against everything.
Right. do think that there are like hard aggro is still a good counter against like I have tore up that we tested last week. I lost horribly in the first round to the mill, the Yoda Leia mill, and then or actually I'm sorry, it was Lando Leia mill. He tore me up real bad. Like I got nothing done. I think I did 6 damage the whole game, and then the second game I murdered him. Like, I mean, it was just like, I played more of an aggro. I played a little harder that time on the aggro side. So I do think that's still a hard counter for it. And I think that some of the vehicle stuff is good against Darth Vader. I mean, I do think that, you know, you can, a Shadowcaster is still does 6 damage for 3 resources.
Yeah, but I mean, Fear and Dead Men's a real card. Like, it is. And then, you know, to speak to Lando Leia, that deck is super awesome when it hits.
Right.
Like, it'll take like 12 cards, turn 1, right? But it doesn't have the survivability because of the force jump, right? So,
yeah, and you get second chance. I mean, and I
get.
I mean, there's other stuff, but yeah, I don't think it's as strong as the Yoda.
It's not
the Yoda Leia. That to me,
I'll stamp it. It's not.
That deck is the most hyper aggressive mill deck we have ever witnessed. Like, it is like, I can't even imagine. So who wins in a mill off between the millionaires and Yoda Leia? Like, what's the?
I think it depends on the roll, honestly, and if they can control the force side, because it's all about the force side. And yeah, Leia has Commando raid too, but the force side. I mean, that's the thing with the force side. If you can get the force side, you can potentially hit 8, right?
Okay. All right. Well,
so, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I think, and then they run 3PO and like, yeah. So anyway, really good. We're diverging. We're about over our time limit. So, you know, like I said, Mike thinks there's a lot of possibilities left, which is good. That's encouraging to me. Right. I'm, you know, personally frustrated right now, but that doesn't mean I won't still be happier next week. So,
right.
What are you looking for this next week in Destiny?
Well, I got a tournament. I have a volleyball tournament on Saturday, unfortunately, again. But I hope we do some team testing on Sunday is kind of my goal right now, in the evening. And then Monday Night Dice will be back to. It's casual. I'm sure people, like you mentioned, as we get a little closer to our regional, I think some of the casualness is going to rub off, and we'll have a less.
I honestly believe people are still chess matching testing right now in ours. But you have Washington Regional in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It sounds like on the YouTubes, the guys have taken the challenge. They've started spitting a little trash back.
Yeah,
so they're ready for you, buddy.
Yes, I'm excited.
I love it. So he'll be up there. I will not be. Got other stuff to do.
Right.
So, in the meantime, we do want to give a shout out for anybody considering coming to the Portland Regional. Yeti reached out and he requested that everybody pre-register. I'll put the link in the comments or in the info section. Right. So if you're thinking about going to that, definitely pre-register. It'll be a good time. It's $25, which sounds high, but it also includes lunch at a really cool place. So.
Yeah, it's really a 5-star regional. Like that is it's like an event. It's pretty amazing. So I loved it. I was actually shocked when we showed up last year and it was as nice as it was. So that was my first Destiny regional and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so do not be put off by the $25 price tag. I've seen some chatter online about people, you know, complaining about various price tags, specifically the FFG Game Center one. But again, do not be put off by the price tag. It's well worth your money. You're going to have a great time. I expect a lot of people to turn out for that one.
Yeah.
I hear the Artificery boys are flying in, maybe, right?
Yeah, so it'll be cool.
Plus, they'll be doing their live streaming, which is always top notch. So, anyway, pre-register for that. Other than that, do you have any other plugs you want to make?
No, just if you're at the Portland Regional and you see us, please come up and say hi. We love meeting new people, and I think one of the reasons why we do this is to help kind of grow the community, and that's a good way to do is shake your hand. So please say hi.
Yeah, and sounds good. So, hey, again, if you like what Mike and I are doing here on the channel, and if you want to keep seeing the videos coming, especially the gameplay videos, give us that like, give us that subscribe, especially if you're the people who like to leave negative comments and attacking comments towards people online. You can at least give us a subscribe if you're going to do that, right?
Yeah, so pay the toll, baby.
Yeah,
for your trollness.
So yeah, exactly. Pay the toll. So other than that, thanks again for watching, and go Commando.
Go Commando.